Back at it here on the Two Deep NFL podcast, breaking down the Super Bowl. It is that time. We will talk about it. This is more about the Chiefs or more about the Niners. Did Mike Shanahan, I don't think Mike had much to do with it, but Kyle Shanahan, did he blow this one? Does Patrick Mahomes now move into the top spot after winning another Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP? How about the Chiefs' defensive performance? Steve Spagnuolo getting much credit, and rightfully so. Did he best Kyle Shanahan? How much blame are we throwing at him? What did we think of the overtime rule? The fact that the 49ers didn't seem to know it. Did Brock Purdy change your perception of what he is as a quarterback, game manager, versus a guy that can go win a game for you? Expectations for the Chiefs and Niners next year. Which one of these teams is set up better? The NFL Hall of Fame class has been announced. Who got in? Who got snubbed? And who are the favorites for next year's Super Bowl? We talk about it right now here on the Two Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the Two Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Two Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Two Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Two Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
Thank you, Curtis. Off and running here on the Super Bowl edition. The NFL season is over. The Kansas City Chiefs ended the way they started as Super Bowl champions, back-to-back. First time since the Patriots went back-to-back in 2003 and 2004. It's a brave new day in the NFL as we have a back-to-back champion, Jeff. Where would you put this? You know, people always love to throw blame, give credit, usually throw blame more than give credit. I've heard a lot of people bombing, Kyle Shanahan. I think he's become an easy whipping boy. Was this more about what the Chiefs did or more about what the 49ers did in ending up with this result?
For me, it was more about what the Chiefs did. The Niners certainly had their mistakes, but I felt like the Chiefs made the winning plays, just as the AFC Championship game. I always talk about defense not taking the ball away, or defense taking the ball away versus the offense giving it away. They got a huge fumble on the first possession. Obviously, got a huge special teams play. You can talk about the bad luck of the ball skipping off the 49ers' leg on that punt, but, they recovered it. The Niners didn't. And I just feel as if there were so many moments when the Niners could have pulled away, could have found a way to extend the lead, could have done all these things to make it tougher on the Chiefs. And they didn't because the Chiefs made great plays, whether it was Chris Jones, Leo Chenal, Trent McDuffie, a litany of guys stepped up. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes did what he had to do at the end of the game to win it. And so I didn't think Kyle Shanahan had a bad game plan at all. I thought their defense played the best it's played in over a month. And sometimes you just run into the wrong people at the wrong time, and that's what the Niners did. They saw the Chiefs at a time when they were ready to be back-to-back champions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I heard some people say, the 49ers beat anybody in the NFL on this night except for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just the one team that they weren't going to beat. And, Eric, I don't think that's that far off. I mean, I think the 49ers are a hell of a team, and I think, it was – it was Patrick Mahomes and this defense were the only things that were going to beat him that night. I think it was more about the Chiefs. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. There was about five. I mean, I remember, and look, I'm a fan, so I did this kind of try to reverse mush it, but I texted like five people after an interception. This game's over. I legitimately thought it. There were so many things that they did. Right. There was the blitz by McDuffie at the end when, they could have the Niners pick up a first down there. They're at the mercy of the 49ers, basically game-winning field goal. They took the ball and drove down and scored both the field goal at the end of regulation and then the one in overtime to the touchdown. They did the Chanel stripped Christian McCaffrey of the ball. It wasn't that McCaffrey, stumbled over his own feet or anything like that. Like I thought that the brand of defense that Spagnuolo played, which was basically press man, the only defensive snap where they didn't play man was the 3rd and 19 in the early part of the game. They did so many things. They opted into so many things. They didn't allow things to happen to them to where to call them lucky. Everybody's lucky to win every game. To call them over and above, I think the Chiefs took the luck that was given to them by the 49ers. And I don't think that Kyle Shanahan was particularly bad. Would I have kicked off in overtime? Yes. Now, it's more 50-50. I'm not going to call him an idiot for doing it. That's, to me, the only mistake other than the end of the first half when he didn't call timeouts and, kicking off the overtime. I thought he was flawless the rest of the time, including the 4th down. I thought he called a good game, Shanahan.
Yeah, on the Mike Shanahan part, he completely blew it on not deferring. I mean,
yeah,
I get it. Like,
so wait. So what's the analytics on that? Because he was making the point after the game when he was asked that question that if both can get the ball, he was playing with the idea of like he would get the ball next when it went to sudden death. Is that accurate?
That's the thinking. But here's the problem, though. The Chiefs revealed this, which Mark Richards is their analytics person who's Minnesota kid. They all the good ones come from there. And he was saying that they were going to go for 2 had they. So the hard part about that is, yes, in theory, if it goes touchdown in overtime, you get the ball with sudden death then. And that's the benefit of getting it first. It comes from the college game where you want to have that optionality. The problem is the college game, you start at the 25. In the NFL, you start at the negative 25. And so the chances that it actually goes touchdown is pretty slim. And if that actually happens, the Chiefs are going to go for 2 on the second touchdown. So the only way that going first, in my opinion, is anywhere close to positive is if you go for 2 on the initial touchdown to go up 8 and to basically shield and to make sure you have sudden death if it gets there. And to me, the Niners don't strike me as a team that would actually do that.
To me, if you're like, okay, well, we think there's a decent chance we trade scores here and we're going to get it, which is a lot of things have to go to that direction. But if what you're playing for is sudden death and taking the ball second gives you the sudden death, it gives you that opportunity. You don't have to wait to the next round. When you defer, the other team puts a field goal up, you can choose to make it sudden death by going for 4th down and get on in the end zone as opposed to settling for a field goal. If they score and you score, you can make it sudden death by going for 2. You don't have to wait for the next round.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah,
Here's my take, and this is not analytical at all. Who's been the biggest problem for the Chiefs this year? Who's been their biggest opponent? It's been them. The Chiefs' biggest opponent this year has been themselves, fumbling, penalties, stepping on their own junk the whole season, right? This is the bad employee that we've all had where the Niners basically told them, hey, you have one thing to do and you win the Super Bowl. Hey, you have one task and I'm going to give you a bonus, right? This is the Niners, by not deferring, right? Deferring gives ambiguity to a team that has struggled with ambiguity all year, right? The Vegas Raiders. Well, I guess we can mess around and maybe win this game. Or the Eagles. 17-7. I guess we can. Like, the worst thing to do to the Chiefs is to give them a clear objective. Because when they've had a clear objective all year, that's when they finally buckled down and done what they've needed to do. So when they gave the Chiefs you need a touchdown to win this game and you are world champions, that was the biggest mistake they've made all year, because that was the most resolute I've seen this team all season, was that last drive. And it was because the Niners gave them a definitive goal for them in the championship. there's no way Andy Reid goes for 4th and 1 at his own 34 if they're the first possession in that overtime. That to me is the only argument you need to tell me that he messed up and not kicking off in overtime was that exact one.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when you do it, I'll ask you this: what's the what do you need if you kick a field goal? What do you need to happen? Right, you take the field goal. What do they need to happen? They need the Chiefs to quote Eric, step on their junk.
Yeah.
Right, because their defense is gassed. They've been going up and down the field. So yes, can a ball get tipped? Can something happen? Sure, it can. But to quote what Eric said the other, a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about the Lions, you're just prolonging the inevitable, right? You're just prolonging the inevitable, hoping that lightning will strike. So there's no difference. I'll even go a step further. If you take the ball, you're touchdown or bust. I mean, barring some kind of 4th and 17, right? You are touchdown or bust. And when they got to 4th and 4 at the 9, I get it. It's a tight field. There's not a lot of plays to call there. But you can still get a first down. You don't actually have to get into the goal line. And when you don't do it, nothing changed. There's no difference between getting stopped and having a tie game and giving Patrick Mahomes the ball, except for you've got him 16 yards further back than you were going to give him when you kick a field goal. When you kick a field goal, you're in exactly the same situation to get the win as you are if you went for it and didn't get it. So why not keep being aggressive? That's where he doubled down on his mistake. And again, I don't think it's horrendous because there are not a lot of plays on the play sheet for 4th and 4 from the 9. Yeah. It's a pinch. But to me, you're at an extreme point. Patrick Mahomes is flexing his muscle. And you just gave your guy a shot. Brock Purdy, like I said, we did our other podcast. 3 times he came back and gave you the lead. And he did, in that overtime, get the lead. But you've given him a shot. You got to finish it. You've got to go all the way to the touchdown.
Yeah.
Take the ball. And he didn't do that either.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him going with it just because there's not that much. Obviously, the first time we've ever seen it actually happen, right? So you have a lot of data to study in the first place. You're going off your gut. And if they complete the pass to Jawan Jennings, we're not having this discussion, right? They're putting more pressure on the Chiefs. I do wonder if the Chiefs would have gone for 2. That would be a really ballsy move in that moment. But I didn't feel like it was egregious in that way. They drove the ball down the field. They got in position. Chris Jones blew up the play, and they settled. But, I think to come away with no points would have been worse. I don't agree with, the idea that you go for it and now it's 7-0, and it's okay, they drive 40 yards and the game's over when Butker makes a kick.
It obviously it changes once the 49ers get the field goal and the Chiefs have the ball. But going into overtime, who'd you think was going to win?
Oh, I had no idea. The way the game was going, I didn't really feel good about either way. I felt like it had been a weird game anyway.
Okay, so let me ask it again. After the Niners settled for the field goal, who do you think was going to win?
Well, at that point, Chiefs were going to win.
Okay.
But
Eric, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead, finish your point.
I was going to say when they got the coin toss, I thought, well, let's see what happens here. I would have deferred, but my mindset was when they moved the ball, I was like, okay, they got a shot. But there were so many weird things happening at that point. It was just hard to know, hard to pick.
Eric, when they started overtime, who do you think was going to win?
I was a wreck at that point. I don't know. Honestly, I was such a wreck. I was pissed that they didn't try one more chance at the end zone with 6 seconds.
I wasn't.
You guys?
No. No, because Patrick Mahomes scrambles. There are so many plays.
I know.
And then he throws it out of bounds.
And it takes too many.
Stop. Yeah, no.
I get it, but when I found out, I tweeted this, and this is what makes me, I think, intellectually honest. Is I tweeted, I said the Chiefs lucked out here by the Niners taking the ball, because when the Niners decided to take the ball, I thought that the Chiefs were going to win from that moment. But when it got to before the coin flip, I didn't know, frankly. And I had the Shaq meme about Mark and his team, the analytics guys, and Mike Frazier and those guys. I didn't know if they were gonna kick, but it was, I didn't know if they were gonna make the right choice, and so that's what I was more worried about. Once I knew that the Niners made the wrong choice and the Chiefs were gonna get second crack at it, I knew that.
Yeah. I felt pretty good when they were getting a second shot at it. I'm like, okay, I think this is the Chiefs' game to lose. And especially, um, you know, the, uh, you know, when they settle for a field goal, I'm like, okay, is Patrick
So
Mahomes?
you're saying at the coin toss you felt good, or when they settled for the field goal you felt good?
I felt good going into overtime. I thought the Chiefs had the momentum. And I don't think Brock Purdy can match Patrick Mahomes drive for drive. I don't think that's a fair fight. And so, yes, I felt good going into overtime. I felt good when the Niners said they're taking the ball, and I felt great when they settled for a field goal. Now,
So wait a minute. So when they were driving the ball down, you were like, okay, can't wait. This is Chiefs ball sooner or later. You were thinking they were going to kick a field goal?
that the Niners would end up settling for a field
Yeah.
goal?
Yeah.
No. No. As they closed in and had an opportunity to score a touchdown, I was feeling less good. I'm just taking the starting points of each one.
Yeah.
Going into overtime, I felt like the Chiefs were the likely winner. When the 49ers took the ball, I felt like the Chiefs were the likely winner. But when they were closing in, my fear was that the 49ers would go for two off the first touchdown. And that scared the hell out of me, that they'd be like, listen, we got to make it 8 from the get-go. That was my bigger fear. When they settled for a field goal, I really felt very good that the Chiefs are going to win. I mean, very good that the Chiefs are going to win. I mean, I really felt like Kyle Shanahan, and listen, I think Kyle Shanahan's fantastic. And I think if he ever gets his Patrick Mahomes, he's going to win a whole bunch of Super Bowls. And I think the comparisons of Kyle Shanahan to Andy Reid early in his career, spot on. I mean, they're spot on. He's fantastic. And we'll get to Brock Purdy in a second. I think he's really good. And I think his clock management's fine. And I think some of the things that we're dinging him for, some of them rightfully so, will be irrelevant if he has a guy that's firing cannons all over the field. And he hadn't had that guy yet, right? And may never get that guy, and that may be, listen, their character flaws or roster construction problems. Did Marty Schottenheimer was he never willing to pass up a pretty good linebacker to take a shot at a quarterback? Yeah, probably. He was probably his own worst enemy at finding his Hall of Fame quarterback. So, I'm all about, I don't know that there's any difference. I genuinely don't know if there's any difference between the coach, Marty Schottenheimer, and the coach, Bill Belichick. It may have just been Belichick's, either lucked into Brady or was willing to keep trying for quarterbacks. I take whatever you want. I think Shanahan is going to win a championship, right? At some point. I think he's a really good coach. But so the quarterback part is big. When you get to that overtime, how many more things are on the play sheet for him to get to, right? I mean, Brock, he's kind of firing bullets.
Well, that passing game has a flaw. And I know JT O'Sullivan talked about this, and he's awesome. But, you guys remember when Frank Clark got the sack in the fourth quarter of the first Super Bowl, where it's fourth and medium, and every receiver is past the sticks. He does not have an answer underneath. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan's passing game does a great job when the defense is has it blitzes them and stuff like that. I do agree with you, Petro. I think Shanahan's phenomenal, but when that running game doesn't work and they can't do the motiony stuff, when the defense starts to play bookmaker and they have to play better, I think that he doesn't have check downs and stuff like that other offenses have.
Yeah. I agree. So how much do you put this game on him, on Shanahan?
I think he deserves a little bit. I mean, for the fourth quarter decision, for end of first half, where the Chiefs very clearly turtled and wanted just a field goal, and he didn't challenge them with time there. I think everything else, though, I thought he was fine. I thought he was a plus guy. So probably 10%, 15% at most.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how much do you dump at him for Shanahan lost this game, as some people are saying?
Maybe 20%, at the most. I think he had a great game plan. I think if you take away the McCaffrey fumble early, the fumble, they get a few more points in it. This was always going to be the kind of game for me that if they were able to get to 24, 27, but they had a pretty good chance of winning. And he dialed some stuff. Guys were running wide open in the end zone. Deebo Samuel was wide open and Chris Jones made a heck of a play to pressure Purdy. Again, the Juwan Jennings play, it was wide open, and those are 2 plays, 2 touchdowns. They get those, and you're talking about it being a 10-point win. And so I don't really think that you can ding him for the overtime decision, but I think overall I thought he was nails, especially with the 4th down call, which he just never does, going aggressive then and not being conservative.
The overtime rule. How big a deal is it that the players, the 49ers, said they didn't know? First of all, I guarantee you there are anywhere from 5 to 25 Chiefs that had no idea what the overtime rule was. And I don't care how many times the coaching staff told them, because there's always a group of players that don't get it.
My first career touchdown in college was called back because the idiot wide receiver covered me up, even though I told that dude 8 times during the week that he needs to be off the ball. I guarantee you the Niners went over it. I don't think this is a Shanahan issue. I think that, Don McNabb, remember when he didn't know a game could end in a tie when he played for Andy Reid? Does Andy Reid a donkey then? No, of course not. I think I think that the new overtime rule, I think most players are various shades of ignorant of the rules. And so the fact that we talked about this on the Red Gold and Bold show, I think the Chiefs coaching staff are very good teachers. I think they do have an edge there. I don't think that means the Niners donkeys in that case. Hey, look, who finished top 4 in the Chiefs in receiving? Noah Gray. Noah Gray was fantastic on Sunday too. So much so that Jim Nantz mistake those 2 guys. All of us white tight ends look the same. But Noah Gray looks so spry out there. He got him confused with Kelsey. So I don't know what people are talking about.
So modest, throwing yourself in with Travis Kelsey in your playing careers. I do think there's something to be said. Look, I think it is a badge of honor that the Chiefs covered this, right? Because, and I said this today on the program, my radio show, that, and Tim Grunhard said this for years, the most precious thing you have each week is reps, right? There's only so many reps. And we know that's why you put all these different things on tape with all these formations to make the defense have to burn reps prepping for a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of it that maybe isn't what you really want to do, but you want them guessing and burning time on stuff that doesn't really matter. The fact that you can do all that, and then at least what they're saying is that Andy Reid covered this time and time again, that he has a time to be as multiple as he is on offense. Do all the things they did, that the defense had enough time to do all the things they need to do. That's a challenge. We've had Steve Spagnuolo say, well, end of the practice, we end up doing a lot of scout stuff, so we don't really get that many reps. Pretty much saying, hey, it's Andy's team, and when he wants to work on something on offense, we're doing offense work, not defense. And the fact that both sides of the ball, I think, can be so efficient, and they had time to get to all these things. Plus, rewind back to the Ravens game, I don't even remember what the situation was. Was it the Buffalo game, after the Buffalo game, or after the Ravens game, where Mahomes said, listen, we have these situational meetings, and Travis hates them. But we go through and we're like, listen, we got to do it. And they go on forever. He goes, I kind of like it. Travis always wants to try to wrap him up quick. Just joking around.
Well, yeah,
they obviously – but to be my point is to either be able to keep players engaged, to buy in on that, but or to get to it all, shows just how efficient Andy Reid and that Chiefs coaching staff is at getting to everything they want to get to.
Yeah, Mike Frazier's their situation. I can't remember his exact title. He's their analytics coach.
Guy.
Yeah, and he's been with Andy since Philly. So this is a guy that's been with him for a long time. And and Andy Reid this year was 3rd in the NFL in win probability added on 4th down, 2-point conversions, timeout avoidance, all that stuff. So even though I even get frustrated with him, this is something where in a year where they didn't bat 1,000 on a lot of their bets, he gave them a half a win by just making marginal, decisions on the margin that were great. And this stuff shows up, right? And we talked on the last show about how good of teachers they are. This is an important thing.
But don't you feel like that's also part of longevity and being somebody who's gone through all these different situations that you recognize, again, just these little things that may not mean that much. I think Kyle Shanahan said he was telling his position coaches to tell the players about it, which doesn't give you the accountability of knowing it's getting done, right? Like people might hear
but
it
that's
differently.
the 80-20 principle. That's the Pareto principle, right? Which is like, everybody talks about Patrick Mahomes' experience in the postseason just gives him more. His experience gives him an edge, and so he wins. So then he's got experience winning. So then he's got an edge over the next guy he plays. So he's got more experience winning, and it exponentially grows to the point we talked about before. Soren and I have argued about, which is Andy Reid becoming a better in-game decision maker because of Mahomes only? It's like, well, yeah, the answer is yes. Patrick put him in a position to have success, and that success fed back into positively learning to be better in game, right? You go for you keep your timeouts more voraciously, you win more, it positively feeds back, so you learn more. All Kyle Shanahan has right now in his dopper is, I did this and lost a big game. Whereas Andy in his data in his brain has, I made decision that, that my analytics guy told me, or I made decision from my gut. I won Super Bowl, right? That's a better way to learn stuff. And having Mahomes has put him in even a more rarefied air where he gets to learn even more acutely than some of these other guys. And it feeds back. And this is why, like, again, everybody thinks it's rigged. To the last point, it's like, it's the 80% of the success goes to 20% of the individuals. In the NFL, it's even probably thinner than that, right? 90% of the success goes to 10%, and it's because these things just keep reinforcing on each other.
I will, by the way, just for the record, tell you that I think Andy Reid's clock management was fine early in Kansas City, and it was fine with the Eagles.
I've never heard this one before.
You haven't?
No, never.
Oh, okay. Have you not, or are you're joking? You've heard this.
I can finish the sentence until they got Patrick Mahomes. Then it became a genius for clock management.
Well, I think that's a perception because I've said it a million. You had to have heard me say this. Alex Smith would take checkdowns in the middle of the field because that's the only throw that he saw that was open. He didn't see the windows of the downfield throws. I mean, like, Andy Reid didn't just start calling routes over 5 yards when he got Patrick Mahomes, right? Alex Smith just wouldn't take them. And I've said it a million times, like, 151 and 2 timeouts. With Alex Smith, you look down and you're burning your second timeout. There's 36 seconds, and you still haven't cleared the 50. I mean, like, it's, that's the trick on getting down the field are the guys that can see the windows and take the shots and weigh the risk reward. For me, I mean, I think Eric's point is right. With experience, everybody gets better. And is Andy Reid better now? Yes, he's better now, and he has gotten better because Patrick Mahomes gives him more chances to do it. Yeah. He does it at the end of every half and every game. And yes, Eric's point is 100% valid. But I also think what the big leap was, I got a guy who will take those receivers down the field.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like life, right? I mean, you get to a certain age, you realize you don't have a whole lot of new experiences. You get the same experiences over and over again, and you make better decisions, right? Yeah. So that girl you met at the bar, I'm not going home with her tonight.
Yeah.
You're like 40. You're 20. This is great.
Everything's slower.
I got 2 kids out of
it. You're not seeing anything for the first time before, so everything's slower.
Yeah.
It's funny that way.
By the way, the Too Deep NFL podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions. All their crews, they're in-house. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. No matter what you need done with the parking lot, one contractor, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, all things parking lot. Find them online at gannasphalt.com. This is actually my favorite topic for this podcast tonight and I'm interested. I want to hear your guys' thoughts first on what Brock Purdy did. How did your perception of Brock Purdy change from this one game? Did it get better? Did it get worse, Jeff? How did you change your perception of Brock Purdy from this game?
It got a little bit better, but it reinforced what I'd seen earlier, which is that I think he ain't the most talented guy in the world, but I thought as far as handling the pressure of the moment, especially in the first half, I thought he outplayed Mahomes clearly. I mean, I thought he was much more confident, much more accurate and sharper. And in the second half, when you feel Mahomes coming your way, coming right at you, he still left the field twice with his team in the lead. And so I know a lot of people I talked to that come in that week leading up to it were like, I think Brock Purdy's going to, crap down his leg and, he's going to melt down when he sees all these blitzes Spagnuolo throws at him. And he's not ready for this, and Mahomes is going to eat his lunch. And I was like, when you're around him, and I've been around him now for the last 2-3 weeks, there is something to him. And it's very, again, I'm not saying he's Tom Brady at this point in his career than what Brady was when he was, second year guy. But there is something about him that is very much like he's not awed by anything. I think that's a great quality in a quarterback. And so as that game went on, he had some tough moments, and the offense was sputtering in the second half, and he knew he had to get some more points, but didn't turn the ball over, didn't make a lot of stupid plays, use his legs. I thought he was pretty capable of being a guy who wins a championship for this team.
Interesting. By the way, he took the lead back 3 times when he counted overtime.
Yeah.
So Eric, where'd he go? Up or down on your list? What do you think of him?
About the same. Like, I don't think he embarrassed himself at all. The Spags was phenomenal. And, you heard some of the quotes. The Chiefs certainly wanted to challenge him. That came out of Snead's press conference that they wanted him to throw. So I think that's troubling if you're the Niners, but he didn't prevent them from winning. I thought that he did what he needed to do. He really didn't put the ball in harm's way that much. He didn't get lucky really. They threw the one to McDuffie, I guess. He handled pressure okay, I thought. The one play to Juszczyk where I think Juszczyk kind of Des Bryant the ball a little bit, but that was really good. I don't know. I think when you think about him in the quarterback group in the NFL now, he's firmly kind of in that upper tier of like the Kirk Cousins types, which is quite a bit to say in, going into year 3 for him, especially considering like he's got obviously more upside than that group.
Yeah. His best play was one that didn't count. And it's when he scrambled around. I think it was early in the first half, and it ended up being a holding call on Trent Williams, but he found Kittle on the other side of the field. That was a very Mahomes-like type play. It could end up being like a 40-yard gain. And I thought for him to come back, rolling left, turn back, come back right, and find that guy, that's a hard play for quarterbacks to make. And so that to me shows you a little bit about his poise and moxie under pressure.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, and then I'll answer it. Let me give you a couple. Just flatter me on this. Who's better? The first one's going to be a laugher, but we'll just go through them all. Who's better, Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy? When their careers are all said and done, who will be remembered as the better quarterback?
Mahomes. Yeah, he's already.
Mahomes.
Yeah.
Okay. Who will be remembered as the better quarterback when their career is over? Jared Goff or Brock Purdy?
I think it's still Goff.
Okay. Jeff? Yeah, with new information, you certainly have the right to change your mind on
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going off the way their careers are started, I would say Purdy.
Okay. All right. Who will be a better quarterback when their careers are over? Matt Ryan or Brock Purdy?
Matt Ryan.
I'd say Matt Ryan right now because he won an MVP, and Purdy's going to have to fight every time he gets a chance to win an MVP because of his draft status.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Although Tom Brady eventually overcame the draft status, but that's a fair point. Russell Wilson or Brock Purdy?
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's a Hall of Famer.
He is?
Yeah. He'll get in the Hall. Maybe not first ballot, but he'll be a Hall of Famer.
Donovan McNabb or Brock Purdy?
Donovan McNabb.
Wow.
Okay. Jake Delhomme or Brock Purdy?
Oh, that's Purdy.
Okay.
Oh my God, Purdy! But
how many people you got on this list?
Delhomme was a vibe in the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
I'm assuming some people have picked up on the theme here. And finally, Kurt Warner or Brock Purdy?
Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner. Okay, all right. So there's Mahomes and Warner, no brainers. Like that's the list of quarterbacks that Tom Brady, and I didn't put Eli Manning in there who beat him, and I didn't put Nick Foles. Nick Foles or Brock Purdy?
No, Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy. Yeah.
Okay, Eli Manning or Brock Purdy?
Eli.
Because he's got 2 championships. The rest of Eli's career is quite unimpressive. I mean,
yeah, but he blacked out in February. Went to Lambeau, beat 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
2 matter.
Yes,
yeah. He beat Tom Brady twice.
But
Hey,
it's
he
Or
lost
he
that
beat
place Mahomes
Rodgers
had
and
gone.
Favre in Lambeau. That's Hall of Fame to me.
Eli Manning has the freakiest postseason career of all time.
Yeah, he's not,
Zero wins
Yeah.
in the postseason, except for those 2 years that he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That is just a white hot mess. I try to get your arms around that. My point, though, is like Brock Purdy, I think is going to end up being pretty good. I don't think we're going to look back and say this was Jake Delhomme. And you both quickly.
Jake Delhomme was good.
He was good, but I think Brock Purdy's going to be remembered as better. Do you?
That'd be awesome because I thought Jake Delhomme was phenomenal.
Well, didn't you just tell me that Brock Purdy will have a better career?
No, I said Jake Delhomme. I thought Jake Delhomme was
Oh my God. No chance.
Jake
No
Delhomme.
chance Jake Delhomme has a better career than Brock
Jake
Purdy.
Jake Delhomme got Muhsin Muhammad to 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns. He went to the NFC Championship game in 2005. He had the 2008 Panthers to 12-4. He was quite good for a long time.
This is a great point. I hadn't connected these dots, but Kurt says, will Purdy ever get back to a Super Bowl? First time loser, hasn't been back to the Super Bowl since Jim Kelly. I didn't realize that. I tend to think that's small sample size and more of an anomaly than it is if you don't win it the first time, you're pretty much not that good.
Yeah,
I'm
Matt Ryan. That's Matt Ryan. That's Jimmy Garoppolo sucks. Yeah. Joe Burrow's in that group too, right? So some of it's small sample, some of it is censored data, right? Joe Burrow's might get back, right? So
I think Joe Burrow's going to. The depth of quality quarterbacks in the AFC is the problem. I think Purdy might have a better chance because there's not as many over on the NFC side.
It's going to take a while for them to migrate over to the NFC.
But it sounds like Kirk Cousins is kind of the career you're thinking for Brock Purdy. So is it Kirk Cousins, but he's got a better coach? I'm all of this leads up to me saying I'm much more impressed by him, and I already thought he was good. You don't have 9.6 yards per attempt, and you're just kind of lucky. I'm sorry. The kid balled out this year, and he's in his second year, and he took the lead back from Patrick Mahomes 3 times in the second half. Somebody said he was firing darts in the first half, not so much in the second half. He took the lead from Patrick Mahomes 3 times, right? When Patrick Mahomes did that against Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game and came back to take the lead, Kansas City couldn't do anything but tell you he's going to be a star, right? And Brock Purdy's not Mahomes. Had done a lot of other things, 5,050 and an MVP that led you down that road. But the things he did in this Super Bowl were really impressive.
Yeah.
And I think people are partially because it's tough to get any oxygen when you're in the room with Patrick Mahomes because he's so great, it sucks it all up. Brock Purdy was badass in this game.
Yeah, I think people have, it's such a black or white either or world we live in now, where if you're not at the top of the food chain, then you just suck. And there's plenty of room in the middle. I look at the NBA, LeBron James has been the best player of his generation. That doesn't mean Steph Curry was crap. That doesn't mean Kevin Durant was crap. Doesn't mean, whoever else you want to throw in there, Nikola Jokic, whoever. It's there's plenty of room in the tent for all different shapes and sizes. And if you said at the start of this year, there's going to be a quarterback in this league who has better numbers than Patrick Mahomes, who throws for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, leads the league in passer rating, and takes his team to the Super Bowl, and we're going to be sitting here talking about him like he's some kind of loser, I would have laughed at you. It's what else can the guy do? It's okay to say nobody's saying he's going to the Hall of Fame right now, but he's not some liability for this team.
No. I'm not ready to say he's going to the Hall of Fame, but I'm definitely not willing to rule it out.
No. And I've talked to plenty of people, personnel people, who said the fit he has, the coach he has right now is what Mahomes had with Andy Reid. He will unlock things in him and get the most out of him. And he's already done that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah, you start to say something.
Yeah, I think, remember, Tom Brady was this untalented in the minds of many people, right?
Yeah.
People forget that the best quarterback of all time, the most accomplished quarterback of all time, at least, was a late round pick who developed after driving the car incredibly well. The hard part is going to be the test remains when what happens when they trade Brandon Ayuk, what happens when Debo gets injured, what happens, because we have seen those be the issues. But no, he's done very little to. I don't think he's. I think he's underrated right now.
Yeah, I do too. Where would you rank Andy Reid amongst coaches all time, Jeff? After this win, is he top 3, 5? I mean,
Now we're talking all-time history of the game.
All time, or at least if you want to break it down and say Super Bowl era.
Super Bowl era. Super Bowl
either.
era. I would put him in the top 5 now.
Can we? Again, there's no way Curly Lambeau ranks ahead of anybody. I mean, I know he won a championships. There is a point, like, if you're not in the modern game, like what you were largely a gym teacher.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about all time, you're talking about guys like Vince Lombardi and Paul Brown, people like that. We don't have to get that historic, but Super Bowl era, Belichick. I always say the people that I've covered, been around: Jimmy Johnson, Belichick, Mike Shanahan when he was on top of his game. I think he's past Shanahan now. I would put Parcells in there ahead of him.
He's clearly past Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy Johnson didn't coach that long. That's what I said.
Isn't that reason enough to put him by? Like, if you hire a coach, if we're talking about coaches, don't you want him to? Like, I think he's past Parcells too. I know Parcells gets all this love, but I mean, for God's sake, every year you got to have a meeting and find out if his fat ass is coming back. Like, come on, Andy,
Joe Gibbs would be in there.
Know what you're getting.
Yeah. Well, here's what I say: it took Andy Reid a long time to get these championships, and I give Belichick because he's got the rings. Jimmy Johnson was obviously a genius psychologically. Just the team he put. If he'd had that Cowboys team for a decade, he'd probably have as many rings as Belichick has. Like, that's how dominant that team was. If you were around that group when they were playing, they were, as one of Eric's, they were a real house. Parcells, because of just the defense and Lawrence Taylor. But yeah, Andy's a top 5. He's top 5 now. He would definitely be 5th of the guys I've seen in that group. I go Belichick, Parcells, Jimmy Johnson, Joe Gibbs, and him.
Okay, Eric.
I think. Yeah, you had a good list, Jeff. I mean, Don Shula, even now,
I didn't even say Bill Walsh.
Yeah, Bill Walsh. We talked about in the last podcast.
Well, Eric said there was a mutiny about to happen on Bill Walsh. I mean, so
you guys didn't know that?
No, I'm just quoting what you said.
Yeah, ran him out of town.
You go back. Yeah,
I knew they were ready to move on. Yes.
Yeah, there was a really good book. I can't remember the name, but it's about Steve Young and Joe Montana's rivalry, and it talked about Bill Walsh. It's fascinating. I put Andy Reid second. My thing is can I really put him that far behind Belichick when Andy Reid, once he got a Hall of Fame quarterback, has won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, which is about the same pace that Belichick did?
Well, he's won 3 and 6, 3 and 7 since he got him, 3 and 6 since he started him, which we don't need
3 and 5 since he started him. Oh no, 3 and 6, but with 3 and 5, and then 3 and 6 since he started him, which is about the same pace as what Belichick did with Brady, a little bit slower. But then Andy Reid with Alex Smith as a 66% win percentage coach, with Don McNabb similar, and Belichick without Brady has not been good at all. And so, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if Belichick is going to be at the top of the mountain, and we compare him to Reid, Don Shula does have a really good record with backup quarterbacks. That might put him in the conversation for me. But like what Andy Reid's done without his Hall of Fame QB and what he's done with his Hall of Fame QB, I think stands up to Belichick pretty well.
That's what Parcells and Gibbs never had Hall of Fame QBs. That's why they're on my list.
And I think that is a great point. I always say I don't know where Joe Gibbs goes, but if there's a Mount Rushmore, he's on it. Three championships with 3 different quarterbacks, none of which are in the Hall of Fame. It's phenomenal, but I do think the longevity counts, right? Like I do think Bill Parcells 4 in the door, 3-4 times. That's a knock on him, right? Like Andy Reid lines up and is ready to go every year. He's already talking about being at the combine in a week and a half. He's 2 days removed from winning his 3rd Super Bowl. Sign me up for that guy if I'm an owner. You ain't got to spend nothing with him.
The other part is, guys, too, is I just Joe Gibbs, 2 of his Super Bowls were in strike short years. So I'm not to say that like they don't count, but his I think he's been.
I don't know how to count that. It's either even more impressive that he did it with all that crap going on, or it's like, it was a fluky year. Somebody had to win it. I'm with you, but
I think he's Mount Rushmore to your point, but I don't think he's close to Andy in a weird way. Like that's strange to think about, but I think that he's obviously impressive, but I don't think he's close to Andy.
Yeah. I also say this: Jimmy Johnson, Bill Parcells, and Joe Gibbs were in the same division. True. At one point, had to go through each other.
True.
To win games.
Well,
like Andy's dealing with what?
And Andy was dealing with a 2-time Super Bowl champion in New York, and
it's been a little different story in the AFC West with Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn and.
Wait a minute, Andy Reid dealt with Joe Gibbs.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Andy Reid dealt with Joe Gibbs his second go round. He had to deal with Tom Coughlin. Listen.
Tom Coughlin's not on my list. Yeah, he's way down my list of guys.
Well, it doesn't mean he's irrelevant when it comes to having the same division with him. He won 2 championships with like a fringy Hall of Fame quarterback.
I'm just saying there's degrees to it. He's in my top 5 to go to 2. What's your list? I'm cutting you off from your list.
I probably still give barely the nod to Belichick at 1 because I think his record without Tom Brady is incredibly damning. It's incredibly because what he has done now shows that makes the Browns thing not a blip and not they were moving. It validates it. Like I don't know why those 3 years haven't counted for so many people. I think it's because it doesn't fit the narrative of he's the greatest ever. Well, he sucks now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
let's be clear. He sucks.
What was Andy doing before he got to the Chiefs?
Going to 4 conference championship games.
Yeah. The year before he got to the Chiefs, right? They didn't fire him.
He had his I think second losing season in 14 years.
So if he had gotten 3 more of those, he probably have been where Belichick is in terms of like having.
But I think that's part of it too, is recognizing it ain't working here anymore. I got to get out. Like by the stories I've been told is he went and tried to leave the year before.
Yeah.
And the ownership, who he still speaks highly of, and they still speak highly of him, was like, listen, I don't have a guy now. You got to hang around. Give me 1 more year. Now, all of that is coming from an Andy Reid side when I get that information. I don't have anything from Lori saying, oh, yeah, that's how it went down. But either way, I don't like recognizing that it's over here is smart coaching. Recognizing that they're not listening to my message, that I'm not clicking with this owner, whatever it is, that's part of the equation too, man. And Belichick was just like, same old, same old.
Yeah, he got full of himself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of it. Anyway, all right, expectations for the Chiefs and Niners next year. Eric, what do you think each of these teams, they're the 2 favorites for the Super Bowl. Are we going to watch a third go round of this?
Yeah, so the markets have the Niners at 5-1, the Chiefs at 7-1. The Niners were the best team in the betting markets basically all year. There was a brief time where the Ravens eclipsed them. I think a lot of people look at the Ravens' defections in the coaching staff and presumably in free agency and see, bad things for them. They look at the Chiefs and see, declines, possibly from losing Snead, losing Jones. They don't see the decline coming from the Niners because the Niners don't have a ton of impact free agents. The issue, though, is, and I've said this on a few shows, 5 players next year are non-quarterbacks that have cap hits over $20 million. And then another 3 or 4 that have cap hits in that $15 to $20 million range. Brandon Ayuk's on the 5th-year option. Purdy's on year 3. They have to pay him, probably have to pay him after year 3 if he continues to play this well. Like, this is probably, if this wasn't the last year and this not a devastating loss for them to lose the Super Bowl in this year, this might be the last hurrah for them. And I think the market has that baked in, for the San Francisco 49ers. As far as the Chiefs are concerned, there are a couple strategic moves away from this season being not nearly as hard as this past one was because of, I think that their needs are very definitive: defensive line, defensive interior, offensive tackle, and wide receiver, which, pretty acute.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some big free agents that the Chiefs are going to lose. I would bet that both Jones and Snead are gone. The Niners might have to cut somebody, right? Because they've only
They're over the cap right now.
Yeah, they got. I mean, something's going to have to get done there. So people are going to have to get renegotiated. Maybe somebody's going to get cut. Maybe they'll be smart and trade somebody for a big haul and use the draft.
But most of the guys they have, like the Chase Youngs and their people like that, Randy Gregory's, they're not like going to be back.
But all the guys that are, to Eric's point, yeah, they don't have any big gun that's leaving for free agency. No, but they're all just sucking up all the cap. They can't draft right now. I mean, they have to do some things, and they would like to get better in some spots. I will say this about the Niners. It is pretty impressive that while they're right up against the cap, I mean, you'd be like, okay, cut all these Jags and sign some new Jags, and you have pretty much the same team, just with different backup singers. But it gets even worse the next year.
Yeah.
And then when you start paying the quarterback, guys got to go, and they'll start getting old. But I think both of them are back in the playoffs for sure. I mean, does anybody see them not in the playoffs next year?
No, they're there. No, I think they're there. I think, I think the Niners have the easier road to get back here, just because it's Detroit and the Rams. Maybe you trust. I mean, do you trust Philadelphia right now? Do you trust Dallas? That Green Bay might make a push, but
I think Green Bay is going to be a force. But but they're the two good teams are in the same division, and your division. The Rams kind of had a pop-up year, but I don't think that they're sustainably good, right, talent-wise. Stafford, this might be this last year, and then Seattle's going to break in a new coach. So, to your point, Jeff, it's a lot easier of a road through the NFC.
Yeah. With the Chiefs on the other side of it, it's just I just think it's hard to. They'll probably win the division unless the Chargers have some miraculous turnaround. I think they'll be better with Harbaugh, but they won't be division winning better. So they'll be in the mix. But they got a tough schedule. They're going to see all the AFC North. They're going to see the Texans. They're going to see the Niners, right? The Niners are on the list too. So they're going to play on. What's that?
Schedule's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's legitimately not like, oh, it's tough right now, and we'll see what it looks like then. These are teams that we know are going to be good. I imagine Joe Burrow being healthy will be a bigger factor in this, and them playing a last place schedule in Cincinnati is going to be helpful to them. The Texans are going to be a lot scarier. They got some confidence. So there's going to be more teams in the mix, and you just don't know one of the biggest factors in the Chiefs' success this year in the playoffs, their great players played great. When you start losing great players, it gets harder. So, when you're saying goodbye to Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed, even though you can draft and find other guys, who knows if Kelsey's got what he's got left in him now. Every year that goes by, you have to assume he's going to lose a little bit more. And the way he finished the season, even though he played well in the playoffs, maybe he has a whole year like that now. So, I wouldn't bet on them winning it again, but they'll certainly be in the playoffs.
The good news is, go ahead.
I think there's a decent shot they keep Snead, at least on the franchise tag. I don't think the tag number is that prohibitive for corner, and he's a fourth round player, right? So I don't know if he has necessarily the same power to sort of hold out, if they tag him, right? So that might be. I do think Snead actually plays for the Chiefs in 24.
But then you got to go find a tackle and a receiver, right?
But they
limited money.
They couldn't convert Patrick Mahomes and get $28 million. So they still have the room. Tooney as well. But yeah, I think they'll keep Snead. I think he's that important to the team.
The AFC North hurts because the Steelers, if you have a bad day, can get you. But the Bengals and Ravens will be tough. The NFC South helps. I'm not buying any staying power out of the Bucs, and I don't think any of those teams are going to take a big step forward. But Buffalo, Houston, and San Francisco, as you mentioned, Jeff, as the like finishers, that's pretty salty. And I do expect a big jump from the Chargers. And frankly, we should probably expect a jump out of the Broncos. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback, but Sean Payton should get better, or this will be it for him. But
the Raiders beat them.
And the Raiders did beat him. Yeah, I still don't see much there, but I think the returns will be less with Antonio Pierce in year 2. But yeah, it is a pretty salty schedule, but I still expect the Chiefs to be back. But we might be watching a little bit of a stretch here where they're not the 1 seed, where it's got to look like this every year for a couple of years. Yeah, I think that'll be it. Real quick, let's talk about the NFL Hall of Fame class. Jeff, what was your reaction to who got in and who didn't?
Devin Hester and Julius Peppers being in over Antonio Gates is a crime.
Okay.
That's my takeaway from it. And I liked him, but as far as impact, he had more impact on this league than both those guys.
Do you have a vote, Jeff?
I do not.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think my frustration with the Hall of Fame and having talked to guys that are in that room is they've got this like almost like, oh, no, you can't go. We got to get this guy in. We got to get this guy in. And somehow that is permeated throughout that group that like they decided that we're going to try to get everybody in that we can instead of voting in the guys that are the best guys.
Yep.
And if you vote for the best guys, then, you know, you will always be putting the best players in, which is what that system is set up for. And they constantly are like, well, we'll get him in like 3 years. There are guys that are like, no, we got to get this guy in because he's coming up to his last year. That's not how it works. A guy in his last year who's not as good as a guy in his first year should not go in over the guy in his first year, right? And that's my frustration. And things like this happen. They'll get Antonio Gates in. I guarantee you they have the year that they're ready to put him in. And I think that's ridiculous. I think Jared Allen should be in. Why is Jared Allen not in the game? I think he's a no-brainer. Like he was an absolutely disruptive pass rusher. Dwight Freeney should have been. Dwight Freeney shouldn't have been waiting for this year.
Torrey Holt.
My frustration was the whole process of what it is. Eric, what's your reaction?
As a college tight end, I know in an overrated college career, I spent the vast majority of my days trying to emulate exactly what Antonio Gates was doing. So yes, Jeff is 100% correct. Him not being in the Hall of Fame sucks. I do believe the Devin Hester thing's weird because he very clearly was the best the best that's ever done it. But he didn't change football, right? Mel Gray was doing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Guys like Brian Mitchell were doing that thing. And in fact, like no one's ever going to do what Hester did again. And Cordero Patterson actually ran kickoffs back better than Hester. So it was a weird one for that one. I'm not offended that he's in because he was so awesome, but him getting in and Gates not getting in to me was egregious. The thing I think it is that there were actually a lot more good tight ends back then. And so they all kind of got lumped in together. Whereas now there's only like one or two, Hall of Fame tight ends going right now, which is Gronk and Travis. So I think that hurt against Gates, which it should actually been more impressive that he was the best of that group of tight ends and a crime that he didn't get in.
Yeah. How can he be, I don't know, 90% of Tony Gonzalez's first ballot, right?
Yeah.
How are you 90% of Tony Gonzalez? 95 and
it was the equal of him.
The equal. Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez is in the media, dude. Like we know, right? Tony Gonzalez is we haven't seen Gates since he retired. Like that's part of it.
Tony Gonzalez didn't sniff a Super Bowl. He didn't get any closer than Antonio Gates did. And listen, I think Tony Gonzalez is great and richly deserving of his spot in there. I just don't understand how he's an automatic in and Antonio Gates has to wait in some line while they, Plinko board their way to getting
it out
as soon as possible.
Yeah. I like Patrick Willis, but I guarantee you the fact that Niners win the Super Bowl had a lot to do with him getting in this year. Go out there, crowds roaring. Hey, here's our Hall of Famer, Patrick Willis.
That's a really good point.
That is a great point. That's a very good point. All right, that's going to do it for us. Remember, we're proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? Not anymore. They've been making them disappear since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your lot. Get your lot restriped today. Seal coating, they do that. Everything from constructing brand new to fixing any and all problems. Signage, striping, they do it all. It's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Great company. Find them online at ganasphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, Gan Asphalt and Concrete. On to the offseason, a lot of draft talk. We'll also go back and review our predictions coming up. Many, many more episodes to come here of the Two Deep NFL podcast. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us